This is day 128, and today we are looking at now how to source the data, specifically sourcing from the body of an email. So I'm going to quickly show you how the procedure works and how the macro sources the data and how it can email it to you. So we are going to look at the end-to-end design of the macro. So let's quickly go through what the macro does. So as you can see, I have here my email, which I have received in my inbox, and it's unread. And this is the data that we want to grab. Once we grab it, we want to be able to paste it in here on my desktop in this folder here under downloaded. So you can see we have up to day 13 here. Once I paste it in this folder, let me just put my folder here on the corner and my email on the other corner here. Okay. Then the macro should come and refresh this one and add day 14. So you can see we have up to day 14. And at this point, if I refresh it, you can see that it doesn't add day 14 here. So I'm not going to open my Excel workbook. I'm going to just let my macro run when I click this prepare report VBS here. But eventually I'll show you how to also automate that so that you don't need to click it, so that it will run at a particular time. But today I'm going to click it. So I'm going to close my my macro here, my workbook. Let me close it. Okay. And let me just make sure that my email is unread. Okay. Okay, let me just open this folder here so that you can see when we place a new file here. So now I'm going to, actually I need to run this VBS here. Let me just run the VBS. You can see it's opening my Excel workbook. It has copied the data from my email. Now it's processing the data. It's refreshing my report. Saving my workbook. Then it's done. It closes off. Then you can see automatically in my outbox here, I now have an email which is being sent out. Let me see if I can open it from here. Okay, it's still sending. Let me give it a few seconds. Okay, there it is in my inbox here. And if I can open the email, you can see this is the report, and day 14 have been added here. So we now have day 14 results. So everything have worked, and I also have the attachment of the workbook. So if I'm sending it to someone, they can also even open the workbook and be able to do some transformations. But also the good thing is that this is not hard-coded, or it's not pasted as a single picture. You can copy individual visualizations and use them in a report. You don't have to copy this one picture and put it on one PDF, for example, on one PowerPoint slide. You can copy and paste it on different PowerPoint slides. And you can see you don't need to open the report to see the dashboard. You can just look at the dashboard in your email. So we are going to look at how now we can do all of this in a few steps. So today we are looking at how we can source data, as I've explained that we sourced data from this table here. So let's look at how we can source data from this particular table. Okay, first things first, we are going to create a macro-enabled workbook. All right. Then I'll open my macro editor window, so I can go to developer and open Visual Basic, or I can Control Alt F11. Okay, then it opens the edit window where I can edit my macro. Then I can insert a module. Okay, I can give my module a name or I can leave it as module 1. Let me just call it get data from mail body. Okay, you have to see here you can see that I am putting my module with a name without spaces in between. So you have to make a name look like this without spaces in between, because if you put spaces, it's not going to work. All right. So in my workbook, I want to paste the data in the data tab in here. So I can, the first thing I'm just doing here is to activate the data tab. Then I select A1. Then I select the range that I want to clear. So if there is data, I will just make sure that I clean everything. I remove and delete everything that might be in here. So that's why I'm using this step to just clean my data. So it will be the range where you have pasted your data. Just make sure that you clean it. Let me just paste the whole code actually, which I have done. Then I can go through explaining it. Okay, so here I've cleaned my workbook. Now it will be cleaned. Let me just add something here. Okay, perfect. Let me just add something. Let me add my name here. So you can see when I step through my macro, okay, sorry. So because I am using early binding, if you don't know about early bindings, I will do a video on how to convert from early binding to late binding. Early binding, it just means that when I define my object here, I define it as a specifically Outlook application object. Late binding would mean that I would define it as a generic object where I would say, instead of saying dim as outlook.application, I would say dim OLAP, for example, as object. Then when I want to use that object, I then bind it to Outlook application object. So the fact that I'm using early binding, it means that I have to use a library reference. So to just use a library reference, just make sure that you go to your tools and under references here, you make sure you are ticking the Outlook, relevant Outlook library reference. So I'll just look for Microsoft Outlook. Okay, Microsoft Outlook 16.0. So I will just tick it and say, okay. Then now let me try again. Okay, then here it's it also needs a reference for the HTML object as well. So I'll just tick that library reference as well. There you go, Microsoft HTML object library. Okay. Okay. So I'll add the library references that you need to make sure you have added in your workbook. I'll add them to the description to my video. So as I step through, I'm pressing F8 to step through. You can see the moment I say active workbook clear between A1 to A5000 or to K5000, you'll see it clears everything. That just makes sure that I don't have any data in here, so that when I save my workbook, it only have the data that I would have added. Now here I just define the namespaces. You really don't have to know what this means. This exactly means. you just copy them as they are. The only thing that you would need to change is your email. Here you put your relevant email, and here you put the folder that you want to grab your emails from. So if you have a dedicated folder where you get your emails with the data in, you can put the relevant folder in here. So this part you just copy as it is. You don't need to change much, only this row here. This is the one you want to just customize. Then here, we are just now looping through the emails in that particular folder. And as we loop through the emails, we look for HTML objects. Here I'm just defining the table, because the table within an email, this table is seen as an HTML object. So that's why we are using HTML object here, or library reference, to grab the information from that table. Okay, so here we are just saying it gets the table. You don't need to customize anything. You just copy the code as it is, basically. Then here over here, I'm now importing the data into Excel. Now I have taken this information from that HTML table, copied it. Now here I will then loop through that table to paste the data into my Excel workbook here. So let's just run the macro. Let me just put a stop here. So let me run up. Okay. So from my pause break, now I'm pressing F8. So you'll see T, we are starting from T is equal to 0. Why T equal to 0? Because HTML defines their objects. When they're referencing the rows of their object, they start from 0. So the rows start from 0 up to whatever the length of my table is, or the height of my table is, the number of rows of my tables, minus 1. Because I'm starting here from 0, so I have to say minus 1. Okay, I'll just loop through. Whilst I'm looping through, check what happens on this side here. Let's just see why it's... Okay. This is because I was referencing to sheet 2. I need to reference to sheet 1 because my sheet is sheet 1. So there are a number of ways you can reference to sheets. It depends what your sheet is. You can reference using the name of the sheet, or you can reference using this identity here, which is sheet 1. If I add another sheet, it will be sheet 2. It doesn't matter what the name of that sheet is. So here it's sheet 1, even though it's named data. If I add a new sheet, it will be sheet 2. Let me just add a new sheet. You can see I've added new sheet. It's sheet 2. Now, if I go on with this macro, it will put data on my sheet 2. So just make sure that here your sheet name is correct. Otherwise, you have to rename here and check what is the actual sheet number you are working with. It's so much easier to work with a sheet number instead of working with the sheet name. But if you wanted to use a sheet name, you can check also in the description below to see how you can replace this part here. So let's change this to sheet 1. Okay, then now we have changed to sheet 1. Let me delete this. We don't need it. Okay, so as we start, you can see it's starting to put data here in row number 2, and it's pasting data, and it goes and puts all the data. And you can see, if I can just quickly bring this is the data we are getting here. So that's the data here. Okay. Then I can run the rest of the table because there are quite a number of rows. I can't keep on pressing F8. Okay, then we have pasted all the data in here. So that's my complete table up until 232, which is Touch Rice Australia. So I can just close it here. 232 Touch Rice Australia. Okay, then I think I just moved back my selection here. Let me just quickly stop my macro and start running it and just redo up until the point where I was. Okay, then here so what happened is I didn't limit my emails to only one email, which is the latest email. So it's something that can be also added here when you are specifying the email you want to work with. So it was going back and looking for the second email again when I do next email here. So you can also remove next email here if you know specifically the email you want to use, but we'll look at that a little bit later. For the purpose of this video, we are just going to assume that the folder will only have that particular email. So let me just stop it and run it again to this point. Let me just remove all the other stops. Okay. All right, now we are here. We can now just delete this row and we want to now save our workbook. Okay, so, and we just set everything to nothing to remove all the objects that we had added here. So we had set these objects to a particular value. Now we are just relieving our objects and setting them to nothing. So that will also make the rest of the macro go faster because now you are releasing a lot of information from the memory. Here, I'm just checking to make sure the day that we are printing. So I want the name of the file to be the day. So if you can see in my folder here, you can see that the name of the file should be the day. Oh, I actually forgot to remove the 14th. So let me I have just deleted it. Then if I say debug.print is just to print today's date. So you can see this is the today's date, 14th. Then I say, okay, now here we are now checking the data tab. So this is another way of referencing to your tab. So here my tab is named data. I'm now not using the sheet number here. I'm using the actual name of the sheet. So you can also reference using this way as well. Then I say copy before, so I'm just copying the sheet again. So I'm just duplicating it. So you can see it's now being copied. Then I change the name to list 1. Why I'm just changing it to list 1 is because the rest of my files in this folder, their names are list 1. So when I did the automation, the name of the first tab is list 1, which I'm then taking and pulling into my Power Query. So I want to keep that same name as list 1. That's why I'm just renaming this tab to list 1. And as soon as I rename it, I then save it as a new workbook. And here I'm just specifying the directory where I want to save my workbook. So I want to save my workbook in this directory. So here you just come and change your directory. So how to know the directory? So this is the folder I want to save my workbook in. So this is the directory. If I just click on the address box here, you can see this is the directory I want to use. So you can copy that and just paste it over here. to replace my directory here. Then you just specify the name you want to save it as. So you can then specify that I want to in this folder, then here this is the name of the file. So here I'm just making use of today's day as the name of the file. Then the type of the file, I specify that I want an Excel XLSX as the type of the file. Then I specify the type of the workbook and the format. You don't really have to know what this is doing, but all you have to just change is make sure you put the actual name you want to use and the correct directory here, because if you keep my directory, it's not going to find it. Then active window.close, it means that once I'm done copying the file, then I close the active window. So let's just see how it's going to do that. So you can see it has moved or copied it, and it has moved it entirely outside my current workbook. Then once it moves it out, it then saves it. So if I say save, let me just open my folder here. Okay, we should see there is day 14 is there now. Then immediately I can say active window, close. Let me just make sure, because I have selected this window, it might close this window. Actually, let me just select this and make it active window. Then I say, then it closes it. It closes active window, then that's it. So if we go to this directory and just open the file, you can see this is the data we have. So this is our data now in its own workbook. So that's how we are downloading the data from our email body. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Watch out for tomorrow's video where we look at how we can download an attachment. So if we are receiving this file as an attachment instead, how do we then download it and save it into the same directory? Thank you for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.